Hi everyone. So recently I came across a post by Dwarkesh. So he's a famous podcaster. He has a famous podcast. And I was listening to one of his podcasts with Rainer Pope, where he was explaining the KV cache and everything, how transformer models calculate performance and everything. But we'll come to that later. Uh, he put out a post asking few questions, like open-ended questions that he thinks, and he put out a prize also for that, overall $20K, and he put out some of the questions. So, so I tried to answer one questions. So his question was that do countries, what should countries which are currently not in the AI production chain do in order to not get totally sidestepped by the transformative AI? Basically, the countries which are not in the ecosystem of AI revolution or AI things that is happening, what can they do? So I try to frame my answer in basically two level. First is the individual level, countries at their own individual level what they can do. Second is the collective level, what they can do by making or becoming a part of council, let's say in a European country or an African country or an Asian country. Individually they can take some actions and they can take action as a collective. Like many countries have been taking actions. Like India, they have been trying to fund the research for the creation of foundation model like that. So the core of the answer is that individually countries they can try to integrate their strength. Let's say I am one country and I identify my strength as a cheap labor or a cheap energy source compared to what all other uh, countries are providing. So I can offer that to a data center or a hyperscaler like Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, or a big data center they want to establish for a chip manufacturing. So based on my once I identify my strength, I need to optimize it. So whether I next step would be I should build that or partner with one of those companies. Like the scale of these companies are near or equal to a large government or a big countries. Their revenue, their profit, and their operation is spread across geographies. Now, once you do this part of research, individual research, you can move to measure whether the investment that you have made by partnering with a specific uh, company is suitable or is in favor of your requirements. And third step would be owning those assets. It may be your data, it may be your land, it may be energy resource, it may be a piece of food, it could be anything. But owning the asset, because then only you can survive in the long run or grow. The second part would be collective. What you can do same action as part of collective, because individually you may not have the same leverage as you have through collective. Many countries have the collective councils like African Council, BRICS nations, or the NATO. Many countries have that based on the geography, based on their historical background, and many things. So there they can launch the initiatives related to AI, and they can partner with companies, or let's say the hyperscaler big companies. They may demand in return for their operation or their investment many things that you cannot give. Let's say they want a very cheap energy cost or free energy cost or a tax-free status for let's say 20 years, 50 years. So if you cannot provide that, are not capable of, you are not, you cannot afford that. So you try to invest your capital, your talent in the application layer. The companies which are building on top of these foundational models, you can build your talent, you can build your capital, you can invest your capital in these layers, application layers. And third would be execution. Even if you do all these two things, and if you do not execute it properly and efficiently, it is going to fail. And if you do not have as a country the resources that of big powers like USA, China, UK, so that is going to always not harm you. So even if I'm a small country, let's say Taiwan, so Taiwan has the semiconductor industry in the world. It controls most of the operations. So bringing that kind of value in the ecosystem is one of the many ways you can be part of this ecosystem. Okay, this is one part, and let's explore some other questions. Yes, Kunal. Yes, let's get this one. Five hyperscalers own 70% of the global AI compute. Some people have been saying the currency of the modern infrastructure or the modern operation, modern business is going to be the compute, not the dollar or the euro. And much of that is actually reserved for the three-member set of the OpenAI and the engineering. How worried should we be that AI use cases which are not building up to the singularity and the robot factories become normal people being more empowered, investing the world better, the internet better, is not the biggest, not the highest ROI activity for computing. In a way, he is positioning the argument that if we know that the available compute is not being effectively used for the better purposes like empowering normal people, making the world better, then how valuable, even how valuable compute will be, and it is going to be, will normal people basically get priced out of this benefit or if we should be worried about this. Means now in the same analogy like we just discussed for the countries, same analogy he is thinking about the humans, normal common people. What can they do to means get some kind of universal basic income or a compute for them? So are they worried? What is the frame of thinking we should think about this? This is also a very good thought, good set of questions that one should think about. Let's read one of the more questions. Yes, a lot of economic analysis about the impact of AGI focus on human demand. Will the economy shrink because our demand can be fulfilled much more cheaply? Will it rise because AI will create new varieties of product, or maybe because the traditional sector will grow? But all these analysis take as a given that the only demand that matters is the one originating from humans. How do you model the machine economy or the demand originates from the AI themselves? And once we did add this consideration to our economic future, what changes? So in this question, he's saying that most of the economic analysis of the AI is that demand will uh, uh, shrink or demand from the humans. What his argument is that what about the machines? Because if machines will be demanding more resources, more things from the economy. So how do you factor in their demand in the economy? Okay, now I was reading listening to one of the post podcast. It's one of the episodes of his podcast, and where the Rainer Pope he is one startup. He's a previous Google AI engineer. So there the concept of the language model called KV caching. KV is key value pair, and caching is of course memory storage. So here is the Hugging Face article that they have tried to explore. what is the actual KV cache if you compare it to regular text generation. So what is the feature? Computation per word. Now in a standard inference, what will happen? The model will repeat the same calculation for every word. We know that LLM generates each word by the predicting the probability of the next. So in the KV cases, what happens? It stores its past calculation, the faster result. Memory usage, of course, use less memory at each step, but memory grows with longer text. Use extra memory because they have to store the cache, but in the longer scale, this becomes efficient. Speed gets slower as text gets longer, but it stays fast. Why? Because longer text now your repetition is stopped. Efficiency, highly computational for slower response time. It is faster because you are storing the memory. Handling long text, it just struggles. It is perfect for handling long text. So KV caching makes a big difference in the speed and efficiency, especially for long text. This is a simplified example implementing KV caching in PyTorch. I created a class KV cache, initializer, function, self, cache, key, and value. Now I'm updating this key value. If self cache key value is none, self cache key value key, they are defined two objects. Else, key value torch category, self cache key. This is I think for DIM parameter. And this is function gets called cache self cache. Okay, when you are using a transform library, this is behavior is enabled by default through the use cache parameter, cache implementation parameter. So when you use transformer library in LLM, it is automatically. Okay, now they have benchmarked this with KV caching, it is 11.7 second, and with the standard inference, it's 1 minute. Speed is fast on a T4 GPU. It is simple or powerful technique that helps AI model generate text faster, more efficient. Transformer KV cache. Remembering important information from previous system instead of recomputing everything from scratch. Okay, that's all. And the next video maybe we'll discuss something else. Thank you.